All right, I can see it well. Can folks in the room and folks in the Zoom
Yep, we
COVID,
can see you
during
great.
COVID, and now that we're in what I like to call the endemic, I'm happy to continue to be here with you. Just a little bit about me. I promise I'll be brief. I started at North Carolina State in the TechCom master's program as a student a while ago. And when I started as a student, I was new to North Carolina, new to Raleigh. Um, coming from Clemson University, those two, especially as it relates to technical writing. All of the previous years in undergrad, I experienced technical writing as business writing. But this course was extremely different and meaningful for me and the other folks who took the class because as a it was about community and therefore be more incentive to come to campus and take advantage of the healthcare screenings. And to me, that was the best class that I'd ever taken. So I landed at North Carolina State because I decided that this is the career that I wanted to have. And from there, I started at IBM as a co op and started doing writing and experiencing technical communication that was very different from what I experienced at Clemson in the community. It was much more technical, much more product focused. And I didn't get the people or the community aspect that I had hoped for when I was in undergrad. So years later, through a career at IBM that was mostly in technical communication, but some site and corporate communications, and always being a part of development teams, software development manager, and I lead a team of software developers. And this team is all about tech for good. And Jules, if you could progress to the next slide, that would be great. Thank you. So, Call for Code, first I'll start by saying this is not a pitch for Call for Code, but it is a description of what my Tech for Good organization does. What we do is we hope to inspire both technical and non technical developers. I think that developers and innovators can be technical, have technical backgrounds, or have English backgrounds like I did. We inspire those developers and innovators to come together to develop practical and effective solutions for that address humanitarian issues that are happening around the world and even in our local communities. And we inspire the development of sustainable open source projects. And that's really important, the open source piece, because open source is free. There's no cost. All it requires is that you be willing and able to contribute to a solution that is helping people in the community, especially helping to solve a problem that folks around the world are grappling with. So, Jules, if you progress to the next slide, we can take a look at what some of those humanitarian issues and problems look like. Um, in our organization and other tech for good organizations, I've discovered are doing very similar things by way of hackathons. So that may be something that's really familiar to folks here today. Um, there are a lot of amazing hackathons that are happening. And I find that these hackathons always focus on some issue that's helping people. Again, tech for good. And some of the examples that my team has participated in have been around natural disasters, or more recently, the term is resilience, or climate change, which is a part of sustainability, or racial justice, even. And I have to be honest with you, these are issues that in my career, and even as a student of technical communication, these are the kinds of issues that I did not have experience or knowledge, even that these technical communities were really rallying around and contributing to, until I really got involved in this Tech for Good organization. And it really opened my eyes to the fact that, hey, we can be technical, we can be technical communicators, we can be developers, we can be for marketing, we can be writers, we can come from all of these different disciplines and come together to solve or to help solve these very technical, complex issues that are happening in the community. Climate change is something that impacts all of us. All of us are impacted by climate change in some way or another, and we all have our personal stories that relate to that. Racial justice is something that many of us can relate to, especially in the wake of George Floyd's murder, Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, and so many others. And there are people that within IBM and other companies and in other technical communities that are coming together and saying, hey, I have skills, you have skills, let's come together and see what we can do to bring technology to those communities that need it most. Jules, if you go to the next slide. And I'm conscious of time, so please let me know if I run over, but I only have a couple more slides here.
All right, if you run a little bit over here, since there's no one in this breakout room afterwards. So definitely don't rush too much.
Okay, all right, thank you. So just kind of building off of that previous slide, now that I've kind of given an overview of some of the humanitarian issues and global challenges that we tackle, what we do is we're still a technical organization like many other hackathons and other technical communities target. So what we do is we take these open source projects, and in collaboration with the Linux Foundation, which I'm sure a lot of you are aware of, we partner to make sure that we can deploy these open source projects in a way that anybody in the world can contribute to. Right now, we're up to 14. That number, I hope, will continue to grow. And this is just a snapshot to show how we make these projects real. Because without making them real and deployable, where anyone can contribute and to progress the technology and the solutions, they really don't make an impact. So being able to partner with the Linux Foundation is super important. And if we could go to the next slide. All right. So in these next couple of slides, I do want to spend just a minute or so highlighting some of our solutions. I did mention that one of the humanitarian issues that we have tackled and are continuing to tackle is around racial justice and equity for all communities. And again, this came out of this challenge came out of the murder of George Floyd, where there were people in our technical community who came, and non-technical as well, who came together and said, we want to develop solutions that help to level the playing field, that speak to more equity in policing and legislation, and voting rights, for example. And even in the way that we write, there's a solution called Take Two, that uses automation and AI machine learning to detect where there may be inequities or language that is not equitable in our content. So these are original solutions that teams came up with, technical and non-technical, all against the fight against racial injustice. And we can move to the next slide. All right, and the last open source project that I want to highlight is around more related to sustainability. Again, this is a project that technical communicators, developers, marketers, anybody that can contribute to. And this one is unique because we also open this up to agricultural subject matter experts and technologists that came together through a Linux Foundation consortium called AgStack, which my organization is a part of. Clemson University is a part of, North Carolina A&T, and a growing list of other universities are a part of. And absolutely anyone can participate in this open source project, which is all about making recommendations to small farmers, rural farmers, and even hobbyist gardeners. The problem was that so much data was in silos, or it was in PDF files, or there was content that was in hard book manuals. And only a small segment of the population in certain regions were able to take advantage of that data to help them increase their crop yields. So our challenge was to, okay, let's globalize this and let's modernize a century-year-old system so that anyone, especially small rural farmers who may not have access to this type of information, that they can leverage around the world, no matter where you are. And again, this is speaking to a community need and really opening ourselves up to any and everyone who wants to contribute to this open source development project. And we can go to the next slide. Yeah, and I have some backup slides here, but in the sake of time, I would like to answer any questions that you have. Certainly welcome, if we don't have time, welcome everyone or anyone to reach out to me over LinkedIn if you want more information specifically about how technical communicators can get involved. And Jules, I'll hand it back to you if there aren't any questions, or maybe there are questions in the room.
If anyone has questions or in the chat, you're welcome to jump in there.
Did she say that she would talk more later about how technical communicators can get involved, or can she expand on that right now?
We have a question asking if you can expand a little bit on how technical communicators can get involved.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you asked. So every one of those open source projects that I mentioned that are published on the Linux Foundation, one of the critical pieces to making sure those projects can sustain themselves is by having accurate documentation. And that's something that a lot of times doesn't get the attention that it needs. So we need people who are really good technical communicators who can practice using the solutions that we have, which is, I think, the fun part of it. Give feedback and be able to go into GitHub and update the documentation and really take ownership in that way. It's an open source community and we all share ownership, but it's just so helpful. And I think someone mentioned this earlier on the panel before lunch, that when technical communicators come to a community and say, hey, I'm here to help, and offer up the help in writing the documentation, and by the way, they're able to test the solutions that we have, that is a huge win for the solution. And it's a great networking opportunity for technical communicators who are so much needed in all of these projects. In fact, we usually have people contributing to the documentation who don't have a background in technical communication. That's how much of a need we have for technical communicators. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Of course, and I'm happy to connect with you more personally just to show examples and maybe send you links so that you can, see, just have a more concrete example of ways to get involved, if that's helpful.
Did she provide her LinkedIn information?
Can you provide your LinkedIn information? You can also type it in the Discord chat. There should be a channel specifically for room 109.
Okay, I'll do that. All right. Tell you what, I will include it in the chat here in Zoom.
That works as well. We can copy and paste it into the Discord chat for you if that's easier.